Okay. Hi, we're going to try this again.
Hello.
All right. I'm Heather.
I'm Austin.
Welcome back to the channel. This is part 3 of the story time about Brandon that I'm doing in the series of story times. I want to start off by saying, first of all, this is not to give you medical advice. We are not doctors. I'm not. He's definitely not.
Nope.
So please don't take any of this as medical advice. Go to your doctor. Secondly, if we mistakenly say something, please, again, we're not doctors. I know I just said that. And thirdly, if you don't like story times or if you are sensitive to issues dealing with children being sick or passing away, please exit out of this video. Please come back for one of our other videos or one of the other videos I do. Just exit out right now. I just wanted to give that little disclaimer. Been doing these where I haven't been editing them. I've been doing them kind of raw. So I wanted to get that all out of the way. So to begin, this is Austin. This is my youngest son who I talked about, and I think you've been on here before.
On what? On the YouTube channel?
Yeah, I think you've been in a video before. Yeah, I
maybe
forced
once
you
or
into
twice.
one.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think I forced him into one. Maybe a couple, once or twice. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Anyway, this is Brandon's younger brother, Austin. He is 20 years old. He, as I had said before, does not have Minkies.
No.
He came out healthy, thank goodness. We kind of called him our second miracle baby because he came out just fine. But in tonight's video, I keep saying tonight, in today's video, excuse me, we're going to talk about a little bit with Austin about what it's like to lose a sibling. He was only 5 when it happened. Brandon was 7.5. Austin remembers some of it, but obviously not all of it. But he has had to deal with throughout school where kids would say, oh, do you have a brother or sister? And he had to learn how to answer that question. And so it might be helpful to maybe a family out there who is going through something like this as to maybe how to handle something like that coming up if they're faced with that. So I'm kind of going to be letting Austin talk a little bit, but I'll ask him some questions to kind of help him along. Because like I said, and if we mistakenly say something, again, please excuse us. But, okay, so Austin, he was only 5 when this happened. His brother was 7.5, as I said. Sorry, I repeated myself. We all know I go off on around and around. He remembers some about his brother, obviously not a whole lot, but he does know what it's like to lose a sibling and the pain that you go through and how it kind of shapes and changes your life to a degree, because it does. It affects the whole family, including the siblings, and no matter how old they are. And then they're faced in life with people saying, oh, do you have any brothers and sisters? And we kind of had to face this one head on with him quite a few times, especially when he went finally into school and things of that nature. So I'm going to start off by letting Austin tell you anything he does kind of remember about his brother, which again, like I said, isn't a whole lot, because he was young, but I'll let him start off just a little bit on what he does remember.
So basically, I don't remember, that much. I was only like 5, when it happened. I do have very fond memories of him. Mm-hmm. I remember, whenever we were kids and everything, we'd play different games and stuff.
He'd trip you.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
He was, he was a really good brother and everything. He was, outgoing. He had his personalities and everything, and
mm-hmm.
Everything like that. I was still young though. I don't remember too much,
mm-hmm.
but I do remember him pretty fondly. So.
Yeah. And they did play games. And Austin, from a very young age, almost it was like he knew that his brother was somewhat different. We didn't have to tell him that he had to be careful around Brandon. It was actually the opposite way around, because Brandon liked to trip him. So it was mainly Brandon we had to tell to watch, but Austin just kind of instinctively knew. And they were very close, and Austin was very proud of his brother. He would lift up his shirt, show them the feeding tube to his little friends, and go, this is how my brother eats. And he also helped me with the feeding tube. I don't know if you remember doing that,
No,
filling
I
the bag and everything. Yeah, and
no.
I'd let him help do the medications and stuff like that. That was kind of his helpful thing. Like, he also helped with changing diapers occasionally, things like that. And then, of course, we had to live a different kind of life. if you remember, because it was kind of isolated in a sense, but you did have friends, little friends that you played with.
Yeah.
But we had to be careful because if Austin got sick, that meant Brandon could get sick and vice versa. So just to move on a little bit ahead, when Brandon did pass away, do you remember anything about that?
I remember some of that night and everything. I mean, you know, I don't remember too much. I remember that my uncle, you know, took me out and took me away from it. I mean, I remember that much, but other than that, I mean,
Yeah,
you know.
we tried to keep him away from it. It happened at home. So, you know, we did have to, you know, Austin being so young, he knew what was happening in a sense because we had been preparing him with different movies like All Dogs Go to Heaven. There were a couple books that we read. We talked about it with him in a 5-year-old sense. That, you know, someday his brother wasn't going to be with us, that he was going to be up in heaven. And that was very hard for me as a mom to have to try to explain to my younger child, but we started when you were very young with that. We really did. I mean, I don't know how many times we watched All Dogs Go to Heaven. I mean, so many times to try to give him the idea of what it meant when his brother was going to go. And he did understand. He did, because the night his brother passed away, I don't know if you remember saying, you said, I now have an angel in heaven, and that's my brother. And everybody in that room kind of stopped, looked at him, and went, whoa. We were in complete shock. And it kind of opened our eyes to it a little more. But he did have a very difficult time with it. Austin did. It was rough for him. It was not easy. He grieved. He did. And to this day, we miss Brandon. We talk about him. He looks at pictures of him. He was on the Make-A-Wish trip. He doesn't remember it. He was only a year and a half. I have yet to be able to watch that video. I know I've mentioned that before. I would like to get it put on DVD so that Austin can watch it.
I think it's an old VHS right now.
It is an old VHS
or something
right now,
like that.
yes.
Yeah, we don't have anything like that.
It was from 2000. So, but let's skip a little bit ahead to when you went to school. And I kind of had to explain to teachers off the bat, you know, he lost his brother. And it affected you, I think, in certain ways. In good ways and in bad ways. Of course, it was sad and it hurt, but also in ways where Austin would accept anybody. He didn't look at the outside of the person. He knew to look at the inside of the person. And he was always one of the first people to do that with kids. But he was also a little more advanced than the other kids in the sense of his maturity, because when you lose a sibling like that, I think it does mature you a little bit more than the other kids. Like, they were watching cartoons. Austin was past that stage.
Still watch cartoons.
Well, you still watch cartoons now, but I'm talking then. But how did you do it when kids asked you if you had a sibling? Do you remember what you said?
I don't really remember too much. I mean, I know that, you know, it was hard and everything. I mean, but it did, you know, help me, you know, be able to look at somebody who was, you know, disabled and everything, and not look at, you know, just their disability and stuff like that. I mean, going through all that stuff, it really helps you, you know, being able to not judge people and know that everybody has their own struggles in life and everything, and stuff
different.
like that. I mean, you know, you have to think of what they went through, and what you would do in that situation, and I don't know. I mean, it's definitely helped me in that regard. I mean, it's not a good situation either way, and everything, but I mean, at least some good did come out of it. I mean, you know.
Some did, yeah. And like I said before,
he did, and he affected a lot of people.
He did. He affected a lot of people in good ways, and it changed them. I think he really did change people who met him, and even to this day, people that we tell his story to, it changes them. Like, they fall in love with him, not even knowing him. I mean, and that's why it's so important for me to get his story out there and let other families know you're not alone. You feel alone, you're not alone. The kids aren't alone. The siblings aren't alone. But you really have to kind of prepare, I think, as a family for, especially if they're terminally ill, of what's coming ahead. And I think even if they're not terminally ill and just being disabled, because, you know, you have to get used to figuring out how to play with them and do different things. And they did. Trust me, they did. But in school, when Austin went to school, I remember he came home one day. I was like, Mom, they're asking me if I have any brothers and sisters, and I don't know what to say. And so I told him, just be honest and say, yes, I do have a brother, but he's in heaven. And that's what you would do. You would tell people, kids, I have a brother, but he's in heaven. And I think some kids probably didn't understand it.
Yeah, I mean, they were little kids and everything at that age. They're not going to fully understand it, but I mean, I don't know.
But to this day, when people ask, how many kids I have, I say I have two. I have my angel in heaven, and I have my angel here, my son, Austin. And like you were saying, it does impact you positively. We always said you have to try to find the positive in a negative. And that's what I always taught Austin. You look for the positive in the negative. And because that's just how we feel that God sometimes teaches you, not that he had Brandon go through all that for that reason, but it's, I think, the way the family has to kind of.
And I think that's how he would want to be remembered too.
Yeah.
I mean, being able to, have an impact on other people and everything. He did have an impact in the world.
He did.
I mean, he helped a lot of people, look at the world in a different way, a different light.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, he definitely was, definitely a good person.
Very special.
I mean, he was, I mean, I wish my girlfriend could have met him. I mean, but.
It would have been very nice. And, and she has said that she wishes she could have met him. And, to this day, Austin stands up for his brother in different ways. Like, we've had a situation that just happened actually today.
Yeah.
Where Austin had to stand up for his brother. So did I. We may do a video on that one of these days. But Austin really did. He went to bat for his brother. And I will just say it had to do with the gravestone. And we'll leave it at that. But he had to go to bat for his brother, and he did. And would you wish your brother was here today, obviously? But I think he is in his own way.
Yeah, he's still with us. He is.
And it's hard for the siblings. Like I said, Austin spent time in the hospital with us. He, knew what a feeding tube was. He knew what medicines were. He didn't know what they were exactly, but he knew what medicines were, that his brother needed them. He understood that how his brother ate. Like, he knew not to put anything in his mouth. He just knew, and it was how we had to raise Austin. If Austin was sick, quarantine. Yeah, if it was something really bad. If it was just a normal cold, we, no quarantine needed. But and your friends, when they would meet Brandon, Austin would immediately say, this is my brother. I'm going to show him to you. Lift up his shirt. As I said,
growing up for me, it wasn't any different than normal. I mean, I didn't know any different or anything like that. I mean, that was my brother, and,
And we tried to make it a happy home. We had the playground in the backyard, basically, the toys in the house, you name it, we had it. We had to do that to, make it happy for them, because there were times we couldn't go to the playground, or we couldn't, have a lot of people over. So we but we did, I think, for the most part. You had little friends and stuff like that, and we made it work, and, you included your brother in almost everything that you did. And like I said, he really did mourn when he lost his brother, but kids are amazingly resilient. They understand, I think, death and passing away better than adults do. Honestly, I think that. And when somebody had told me that, I didn't believe that until I saw it. Yes, Austin mourned. He did. Just as much as all of us did. I'm not saying that he didn't, but he understood the concept of where his brother was. Kids do. And I think it's important do you not think it's important when you have like a sick sibling that's maybe terminally ill for the other child to know?
Yeah, I mean, you want to be honest with them and everything. I mean, you want them to know, you want them to understand and everything. I mean, it's only fair. I mean, to, do all of that. But, I mean, you have to enjoy every moment that you have with them, too.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't forget, that, you just have to enjoy every moment that you can.
And how do you think it's affected you today?
Today, I mean, I remember them each day. I mean, I'm always thinking of them.
Anniversaries especially are hard.
Yeah.
And as a person, how do you think it affected you and molded you as the person that you are today?
Well, as I said before, I think I'm just more open to, I don't look at people on the outside. I mean, I look at them on the inside, and I don't look at their own. I don't look at their situation. I look at who they are, and I mean,
which I think Brandon taught us, because we didn't want people looking at Brandon and judging him, because he was able to express a lot of emotion. And Austin knew his Brandon call that Brandon had for him, because he babbled. He couldn't talk, as I've said in previous videos. And, like I said, we were open, as open as you could be with a child, that their brother probably wasn't going to be around when they got older. But, you have to do it in a sense that the child can understand. Like I said, we did it with videos, we did it with books. We talked, if Austin asked questions about what was going on with his brother, why does Brandon like this, or why can't Brandon do that, which I don't think you really asked a lot of that, because you just kind of accepted him as he was, and we kind of made it so he could do things. So, and I think today it's molded him into a wonderful young man who is taken, by the way. He's taken.
My beautiful girlfriend Felicia.
Yeah, she's here. You're actually going to see her in future video. But I think it molded you in a good way. I mean, it's sad, of course, we wish he was here, but he isn't, and that's
he
the
taught
sad.
a lot of people.
He taught a lot of people. He did, and I'm hoping that these videos I've done can touch maybe just one person, one family, and help them. I know I'm being raw, and I'm being kind of very open, and that's kind of scary for me to be this open with people and this raw. And is it a little scary for you, or no?
I mean, I just hope that people can learn from it, and this can help somebody. I mean, if even just one person. I mean,
and it's not that we have all the answers or our way is the right way, but I think when you're a family and you have a child that either has a disability or a sickness or a chronic illness or a terminal illness, you have a lot of things in common, so to speak, but you're not alone, and you feel alone. And when you're faced with your little boy or your little girl coming home and saying, Mom or Dad or whoever, they're asking me how many brothers and sisters I have, and I don't know how to answer, because he still considers him his brother, because he is, but they don't know how to answer those questions. And so hopefully this helps somebody maybe who's going to be faced with that, or they're faced with that now. And do you know how to handle it? And do you remember being in the hospital with him, or are those memories kind of not?
It's sort of, I said, I don't remember too much. I was only a little kid. I mean, I only remember bits and pieces, but.
Yeah,
so.
and we weren't fully open with Austin about everything that was going on with his brother. Obviously not, because first of all, he wasn't at the age to understand what, like an older child might. So he was younger, but there were times, he would see things and he didn't quite understand what they were, and we just explained it to him in terms that he can understand, but yet we were honest with him. We didn't block you from it. We didn't hide it from you. And I think that was for our family, that's what worked. I'm not saying it's going to work with your family, or if you're not doing that you're wrong. But I want to thank Austin for coming on video with me today, or doing the video with me today, because I think it's a special thing that he's talking about. I think Brandon would be very proud of his younger brother right now. I really do. And I'm proud of Austin and the young man he's become. And I think some of it was due to his brother. And as I said, Austin came out completely healthy. He had a very high chance of coming out with it too, and we had accepted that, but he came out okay.
As far as I know.
Yeah. As far as they tell us. But I want to thank Austin for coming on here today. I probably will be doing a few more story times. I will have other content on the channel, but I wanted to say thank you for coming on here today with me. And we just hope that our story, our family's story, might help someone else out there, and that young people, you have a voice too. And, you know, if your sibling is no longer here or they're sick, you know, don't be ashamed to say, oh, that's my brother, or that's my sister, or something of that nature. Don't let people make you feel that way, right? Because
Yeah.
every life matters. Every life matters. And Brandon's, I think, good proof of that. He's really, I think he shaped both of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of other people. So I want to say thank you for whoever stuck around and watched this video. And I will have a part 4 coming up. I'll give it a little bit of time before I do it, because this is emotional and it's hard to talk about, but I think it's important to talk about at the same time. And I have this platform, and I just feel it's the right thing to do. So until I see you next time, bye.
Bye.